Okay, we're back, and we're going to start the fourth operation of the same reading. So again, the Knight of Discs on top as your significator. I invoke thee, E-A-O, that thou wilt send ahead of the great angel who art set over the operations of this secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. So to recap, sort of more for myself than anything else, first operation was about familial issues. Second operation was the beginning of grad school. Third operation was more the result, perhaps not of grad school in its entirety, but perhaps at least after the first year, maybe. And it's the same question that we are asking for regarding emotions and the emotional side of yourself, and trying to learn to express that better. Now, the fourth operation, having 36 cards, is a little bit on the long side. Just so you know. Oh my god. That is by the way, my director for my community choir texting me endlessly to make sure, as if he's my mother, whether or not I have received all the emails and have read them. He does this all the time, and it's starting to drive me crazy. I'm going to ignore it for now and pray that he doesn't text me back. Okay. And you're right at the top practically. Because now what we're supposed to do is pull you out, take everything below you, and stick it on top. And deal like that. Okay, so now we have to ring 36 cards around you. Okay, so we start at the ascendant. Okay. So despite having achieved a good amount of success through hard work, you will still feel not quite, I guess, just not all that happy. Um, particularly, I mean, I sort of want to say, particularly in your love life, you might undergo a particularly painful instance um, in that area of things that will not necessarily be pretty, or you will just feel like you will have failed to um, make a worthwhile emotional connection with something in particular. Um, Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it does seem that you are in your focus on career at that point. You will be very wary of relationships and inviting people in because you'll be so focused. You know, you'll be in a very Capricorn state of mind. And so you're going to be wary of distractions of that nature. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Reminds me of Christine. Um, your hmm, you're still going to feel pretty content at this point, despite not really having um, that kind of romantic aspect to your life at that point, because your friends are going to be, I think, pretty strong for you. You'll still feel part of a good community, and you'll still feel happy with your own work. Um, there is huh, there's someone else who is sort of a like mind as you are, um, who you may be friends with in particular, who might have similar issues. He'll probably be a male, obviously. He'll probably be a male who is around your age and will also be very industrious and hardworking. Um, 4. Um, but uh, it looks like he's going to have a crush on you. I don't know. Um, Alternatively, it could be you, because that doesn't really make sense, frankly. I think it's more you uh, being very overbearing in your work and failing to find love because you are very much focused on your own success at this point. And it is, um, I don't know, I think that you're going to almost feel very, well, I almost want to say a little tyrannical, you know, um, but very bogged down by the pressure of your own ambition. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But huh, but this somehow leads to an understanding of what purely makes you happy, um, it's sort of like making for a sacrifice of your love life in the name of what you are more eager to pursue because it is representative of who you really are. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that leads us back to the Princess of Swords, so it concludes with you remaining sort of very defensive about who you let in. This is sort of how I feel about things right now myself, so I can kind of relate. But it is interesting. I mean, it could be alternatively. Well, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But it is. This is interesting. I'm trying to figure out what this Prince of Discs person is. It's not really clear. I mean, it very easily could be you as just very much focusing on what needs to be done instead of focusing on the exterior stuff, stuff that isn't quite as pertinent to your immediate career and necessities. And even though you're going to be very busy because of this and very much overwhelmed, you're going to be very happy in that regard. And I think it does open up an opportunity to understand yourself better because you will have understood what it is that makes you really happy and truly happy, So that's kind of about it. I mean, it's not good in terms of necessarily of expressing yourself emotionally, but honestly, I don't think that is natural for Capricorns or for Earth signs in general. I mean, Earth signs notoriously have issues expressing their feelings. I should know because God knows I've wanted to date too many of them, and it's always been a problem because they are very closed off emotionally and they don't like to talk about what they're feeling. They're just very vulnerable emotionally, almost more so than a water sign. Whereas a water sign would either be, very passive aggressive about it, like a Scorpio, or they would eventually say something about it because they like to express it. Earth signs don't like that. Earth signs just sort of forget about emotions because they don't really make sense to them. So it's not entirely wrong for you to have a more restricted emotional side. I think what it's saying though is that your career in an expression of your of your love to work and to be able to learn new things, your love of learning, I think that we saw even at the beginning because it's always been a major source of success and self-fulfillment for you. I think that this career path is very good for you in regards to that. It's going to keep you very busy and you're not going to have much of a love life, but it doesn't mean that you won't be happy in many other ways. Again, I think that there are going to be some failed attempts at creating relationships that will sort of implode because I think just your career will be too important. Oh, excuse me. That's interesting. I sort of just want to read through some of this. Because now we have to do the pairing, and the pairing in this operation is so darn difficult. I'll start with these two. And this does not bode well, that combination. It does say that, I mean, not everything is going to be easy, and part of that is due to emotional instability or emotional weakness in a way, that actually what you're going to need at this point is less of a connection to your emotions, sort of tuning them out a little bit, which might seem contradictory to what we've been trying to pinpoint here. But that's sort of what I see. Um, and just your expectations regarding romantic happiness are not going to be easily fulfilled. And in fact, it's going to probably make you lose faith, I think. Make you lose faith in what you're doing for a while. Uh, there is going to be, but then it goes right into saying that you're going to be also very happy, possibly with some kind of connection you're going to make with someone. So it's very contradictory. It's very strange. You start off poorly, and then very quickly you sort of fix it, but yet you are still sort of wary of the path you have chosen at this point. However, through your ambition and your kind of obsession with your work or your determination, you will be very successful again, and it is in your nature to work hard towards things. That is just what Capricorns do. You have the devil again with the sun, and that's actually a very good combination. Um, then you might experience some vacillation in your desire, though, to do it eventually. Um, Sort of just, I think financially you're not going to be all that thrilled with the situation. It sort of says that financially it will be decent, but it won't be great. It won't allow you to really, I guess, spend on anything finer or all that luxurious. It's sort of just solid. It's also a little transitory, which isn't good, but that's the nature of the beast, as you know, in a music career. Um, Creatively, you're going to want to pursue really big ideas. You're going to have these really high-minded kind of very romantic concepts of what you want to create. And again, that it's sort of saying that your financial situation is going to be because of that, the fact that you are an artist. Excuse me. Um, but yeah, it keeps talking about this sort of vacillation that you're having here, like sort of uncertainty about what you're doing, and possibly wondering if you should try something different instead, um, which isn't good. Uh, Again, experiencing some difficulties as far as romance or even your sex life is not necessarily going to be fulfilling in some capacity, and or even your passion for what you're doing is going to become strained. And I do see it as just sort of happening naturally, like it sort of just keeps going back and forth between you feeling really good about what you're doing, but then seeing the toll it's paying, excuse me, the toll it's having, God, I can't use English, on on other areas of your life. And sort of becoming disenchanted with that to some extent. And yet you go right back into work. Uh, it's like you don't quite break out of it. There is eventually down the line um, some kind of new, a potential for a new love interest that actually has some potential to it. Um, and it will probably be new and sort of unexpected about it. But it's going to be right. It's going to be very successful. Um, well, that's interesting. Um, I don't know what to say about that. That's a strange combination. I sort of want to just skip it because it's not even important. It says that it's not important because they cancel each other out, really. Um, but I don't know. Huh. God, this operation is dreadfully confusing. It's why I sort of dread the fourth operation. Gosh, it's almost too much information at this point. It's like overload. Um, but honestly, it sort of says that um, this guy keeps coming back. I don't know if it's entirely you or not. I don't think that it's entirely you. I actually sort of think it could be someone else who is possibly interested in you, which is interesting because it is probably a male. And it would be a male who does have a more emotional side to him. Um, but again, I think if we went back to the counting, we would say that, I mean, you're not going to obviously want to go down that route because you don't think that that's right for you. Uh, because, I mean, your sexuality is pretty firm, at least based on what I know about you. But it is likely that there will be someone who might be interested in you in that respect, which is interesting. Um, huh, odd. The overall result of this operation, if anything, because I'm sort of getting lost here, and I'm sure you are too. And honestly, I don't quite know what to say about this. I am not a psychic reader. Um, the overall result is basically having uh, the courage and the confidence to be able to deal with over a long period of time whatever difficulties are besetting you in regards to this situation. And the difficulties are primarily, I want to say they're primarily of a romantic nature and of a social nature, um, and also sort of just doubting yourself. I just get this sense of doubt from this, and I mean, it's not strong, but it does sort of keep reasserting itself every now and then in various ways. And it's sort of just ennui at times. Um, but I do think that your love of leadership at this point is going to be, and your position of authority at this point will have been um, situated. I also think that I think almost more so than anything else, this probably, now that I think about it, isn't really a new relationship that would be successful. I think it's probably more a job opportunity that you're going to feel really good about and feel very happy with. Um, and you're going to probably have to move to accept it. Um, But yeah, at the same time, though, there's this person that is somehow involved in it. Um, it could also be a female person who has sort of a masculine disposition in some respect, like she has sort of the same work ethic that you do. Um, but I can't quite tell, honestly. It's very misty, and it's not a clear narrative, honestly. Just isn't. But I think its themes are sort of repetitious after a while. And I would focus on the counting aspect that we did before, starting at the Five of Swords, going to the Princess of Swords. You know, sort of this uneasiness about relationships and not really wanting to lose your independence, really. You know. Oh, oh, excuse me. Just looking over it again. Ten of Wands. Hmm. Honestly, I think it's saying that you are going to be yourself through this, you know. Again, I don't think that you are necessarily meant to be this a particularly uh, emotive person. You know, I think the trick for earth signs is to remember that it's okay to have emotions and to express them, but you're never going to be a total romantic either. You know, I don't think so. I mean, it's sort of rare that an earth sign is able to do that. I mean, Taurians are a little bit more able to do that, but not really. And, excuse me, Capricorns are bad too at that. So, I don't know. We'll resume and we'll go on to the fifth operation and see what this says. And then I sort of feel like we didn't really get at the question that you asked. So I'm going to do a very quick Celtic cross for you at the end to try to. Actually, no, I'm going to do a tree of life for you at the end, a regular tree of life. I invoke thee, O, that thou wilt send ahead, O the great angel, who art set over the operations of the secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. This is the final outcome or overall result of this situation. And you know, the fourth operation may have been just as it, you know, as I think about it. As I said at the beginning, I just remembered this. You know, the timeline of this reading was projected to be a little misty, and so that could partially be why the fourth operation was so diffuse. Um, you know, when you don't really set a clear timeline for the opening of the key, it can get a little out of hand, especially at the fourth operation. You know, it still tells you a narrative of sorts, but it can be very, very scattered. And it can jump around, and it sort of gives you themes more than anything else. It's very hard to track. I find it difficult to track whether you set a time for it or not, but I've also found that when you do, it makes a little bit more sense. Um, and that one seems just particularly all over the place. You know, at least the pairing did. The card counting was pretty clear. The card pairing was pretty merciless. And it's possible that this Tree of Life reading will actually give us the information that we need. So it might not be necessary to do a second one. We'll have to see what this one gives us. Start at the top. This is going to be really tricky to fit all in one camera angle. I don't know if I can do it, honestly. I have to scrunch it too as much as possible. Oh, we did it. Bam. And remember, this is the one where my Hebrew is going to probably be absolutely atrocious to your poor ears, and I apologize for that in advance. Again, it's particularly because I don't really know where the accents of words are supposed to go, and I really don't know how you're supposed to deal with TH in Hebrew. I feel like I hear it a different way every time or something. It's very confusing. And especially because Greek, which is sort of the same alphabetic ilk, usually I think does T with CH. I don't know. The heck do I know? I should have been a classics minor or something. Whatever. Instead I had to take Middle English. I know, you and I love Middle English. Anywho, okay. Amodio, that was what his name was. That's right. Couldn't think of that professor's name. Okay, so, Alright, well, at the very top of that. Interesting. Huh. This is very interesting because right away, the first thing that I find very interesting is the Queen of Swords in Yesod, which, as you may or may not know, means foundation, and is attributed to the moon, but it tends to be attributed mostly to our subconscious, the part of our I guess our consciousness in general that acts automatically without necessarily our conscious consent. So a lot of our bodily functions, like remembering to breathe and that sort of thing, digestion, all those things are attributed to Yesod, as well as vegetative growth, fluctuation, those sorts of things. But being the moon, it's also associated with illusion. But here, you know, the Queen of Swords keeps popping up in various ways, in a very subtle way. And I do think that she is a part of you that is worth looking at more. I think she wants more attention than you're giving her. It could be a representation of your anima in the Jungian sense, or your holy guardian angel, whichever you want to call it, Adonai, etc. But we're going to start at the top with God, which seems a little blasphemous, I realize. But we start with Keter, the crown, And this is sort of the first matter, the prime material out of which the world is made. And it is also the hidden logos, the hidden willpower of God, the original will to create something in general. But it is not really defined in any way, shape, or form. I need to turn lights on, I realize. Hang on. So Keter is always ineffable, it's always very indescribable, and it isn't until we get to Chokhmah, wisdom, on the next emanation here, that we get any real sense of what Keter is supposed to be about. And so Keter is saying that your highest good in the culmination of this situation is actually to acquire material security, and that is one of your kind of like the prime drive behind this situation. That perhaps maybe that's the answer that you're looking for here, is that in order to really feel comfortable emotionally, or to express your emotions, you have to feel secure first. You have to feel like you're protected and guarded. And part of that is a material kind of guardianship. But I think if we go back to the first reading, the first operation, that card was an aspect or a representation of the relationship you have had with your family prior to the divorce that upset everything and started us all off here. You know, that sense of security was very important to you and still is. Now, it says that this is sort of the driving force behind your ambition to some extent to take on lots of new things. In the previous operation, we talked a lot about how you were just getting a little overwhelmed and wanting to be very career driven and very motivated. And it's sort of saying that that is a result of your inherent need for security and protection. The form that it takes in Bina, or Bina, I still don't know which accent to put it on, which means a throne, or rather, I mean, it doesn't mean a throne. It's associated with the throne. It means understanding. I'm sorry. The vessel of this will is I guess recovery in a weird way, rebuilding. I think it's sort of saying that it's going to take you a long time to build your sense of security back up so that it rests within yourself and not within others. Does that make sense? And I think that makes sense given everything else that we've talked about. Separating the supernal triangle from everything else is the abyss, and now we enter the actual as opposed to the ideal. And we hit chesed, mercy, sometimes known as gedula as well. Again, I don't know if it's gedula, I don't know, who the heck knows. And it sort of says that the highest ideal of Keter, of this idea of security in the real world, is associated with sadness, which is interesting. I think you how do I want to say this? Or rather, what is it trying to say that I'm not getting? Because essentially, this is this on the lower level, and this is this on a lower level. And this is the potential of all this in space and time. And it says that the prime potential for, I guess, for this reconstruction is loneliness. And I sort of think what it's saying is that your whatever loneliness you go through is actually an aspect of mercy. And I know it doesn't sound like it should be, but it is in that the goal of it is to make you secure in yourself and to make you as independent as you are capable of being, because that is your nature to be so. It is, I mean, again, this is the Four of Pentacles is an expression of Capricorn, which is interesting, and that is, again, in Keter, your highest good. That which stirs this into motion is the Three of Discs, which is work, which is labor, which is the crystallization of energy. So it's sort of saying that what is spinning all this into action is your desire to work, but you have to work, so it's sort of saying that that even though your work is going to make you very lonely and isolated and feeling isolated, it actually in the long run is not meant to be a bad thing. And I think it is in your best interest to try to see how that makes sense to you. I don't think it's meant to make sense to me as the reader, and I don't think it ever is when we're doing a Tree of Life, because this is very personal stuff. This is sort of the personal mystery that we each have as regards our lives. And I think it is saying that your life, because you're very industrious and being such a Capricorn and being so interested in your own self-protection, that there is going to be an inevitable kind of loneliness that has to do with that. And I think the most balanced expression of these things in the real world, this is sort of this is associated with the Redeemer in some capacity, Adonai, the formula of the dying man God, in other words, the dying divinity who has incarnated in the form of humanity. So pick whichever God you would like to represent that aspect of divinity. But it usually represents consciousness that is pure and exalted and very clear and truthful. And it does say that learning and self-development and growth is an expression of your truth and of your true purpose, that is one of your consolations, I think, in this life, is that because, and it's why you've always been good at it. It's because it's what you're meant to do. It's what you do naturally. You are a good student and you are a good worker. You like to work, is sort of what it's saying. Especially when what you're working on is something you're so passionate about. Now, in Netzach, this is sort of your concept of bliss at this point. And you have the 8 of discs. Again, you have a tremendous amount of earth and absolutely no water until the very end. Water being the element of emotions and earth being the element of practicality and work and labor. And you also have a lot of swords, which is this very mental aspect of you as well. And I do think it's connected to the Queen of Swords and Yesod, which may or may not represent an aspect of your moon sign or your anima to some extent, who is sort of concealed from you at this point. She's sort of acting out naturally through you, but you don't necessarily understand how she is acting through you. The eight of Pentacles or discs for your idea of bliss. Your idea of bliss at this point is very much connected to this sense of work in Geburah. it's this idea of conservation of energy and um, fertility and growth and agriculture, and all those ideas are contained in this card. This idea of, um, I guess, cultivating something over time. It says that that is what makes you very happy to watch something go, whether it be a project or yourself, go from A to Z. You know, seeing the end product after a lot of work and patience. Now, Hod, or Hod Splendor, uh, is attributed to Mercury, whereas this is Venus. And in Hod, you have the star, and Hod is associated with intelligence, basically. The it's Chokhmah, wisdom on a lower level again, and it's sort of just associated with cleverness and abstract thinking and the ability of the brain to manipulate reality to suit itself. The ability to have abstract thinking, and it says that logically, you are going to be focused on a lot of potentials in your future, that that you're going to have a lot of options to weigh and deal with, as regards your future. And I think it's sort of saying that you are going to lean possibly in the direction of even further education after you are done with grad school, and after you have sort of maybe taken some time after grad school to sort of figure things out and try to maybe work in the real world a little bit. And again, whether or not that is successful for you at first, it's sort of a little tricky to say. I mean, it might take you a while to get employment that you're happy with, but eventually, I think, as we saw in the previous operation, you're going to find it. It means you'll probably have to move. And then I think you are, just because it is your natural inclination to do so, going to want to go back to school again, so that you have even more options in front of you to deal with. And in your subconscious, again, you have the Queen of Swords. Now, the Queen of Swords, I haven't really talked about her, because she hasn't really come up overtly. The Queen of Swords is a person who is usually very fair-minded, very impartial, very judicious. She's also associated with private grief and female suffering and loss, which is interesting. She is sometimes associated with widowhood and divorce, those sorts of things, those ideas of female hurt, but also this sort of logical way of grappling with that hurt. Sometimes it can be very harsh, the way that she acts out that harshness. You know, she can be sort of Amazonian or warrior-like in her nature. But I think in general she's very graceful, and she's very articulate. She's very artistically inclined, actually, for an air sign. She also has a bit of Virgo in her, which is interesting. So she does have this sort of earthy quality to her. So she is sometimes associated with ideas of purity and perfection, personal growth and development, practical wisdom. These sorts of ideals are important to her. And it's sort of saying that that is going to be a subconscious impulse for you. She's going to act out in that sort of subversive way, not necessarily to your detriment, because as we see in the material world at the end, Malkut, which is kingdom, you have the Chariot, which tells me that you are going to be very successful after all of is said and done. You know, you do have a very difficult and long process ahead of you, that is not without personal tribulation, but it does say that you're going to be able to triumph over those things, particularly in the material world. And that is important given what we talked about at the very beginning of this reading with Keter, with the Four of Discs representing financial stability, security, and well-being. So I think it says that you're on the right track. It's just that there are going to be bumps in the road. And I think that, that this situation, that the way your life is panning out, is a way for you to get to know yourself and to tap into other parts of yourself. I think the expression of your emotions is never, again, is not meant to be overt or romantic. I think, if anything, it's supposed to be sort of like the Queen of Swords, which is kind of a logical understanding of your emotions and a balanced understanding of your emotions, an understanding of what it is that makes you upset in life and what it is that makes you happy in life, and being able to at least communicate those things through your interactions with others. And I think as you understand and come to learn those things, you can then add them to the art that you're trying to make. I think the music that you're going to make is always going to be of quality. It's said that several times, and it does say that you're going to get recognition and whatnot for your work and acclaim. But it's not going to be necessarily very passionate music, at least at this point. And I sort of see you taking kind of like a Christine route, um, because as you know, Christine's process is very logical, and it isn't particularly emotive, and I do think that kind of hurts her style, but it's still a very good style, and it still is incredibly effective and useful, and she is still able to do some really great things. That's undeniable. So I think it's sort of saying that she is going to be. She might even be an important figure for you subconsciously. You might even emulate some of what you do based on Christine. Christine is the Queen of Swords. As far as attributions go, for you specifically and personally, probably not. I don't think that she would have that big of an impact. But it is interesting to note that Christine, one of your greatest mentors at this point in your life, has been sort of a Queen of Swords-like person, someone who really is kind of, kind of harsh, to be honest, and someone who is not necessarily touchy-feely, but is very effective and very, very smart, very gifted with words, sometimes in a bad way. I think it says that you, in general, the Queen of Swords is telling you to be, it is an opportunity for you to be more vocal about what you're feeling, because she is associated with speech. Now, I'm curious where we're going to find you as far as your significator is concerned. So we still haven't done that. That was all just from the tree. And you are actually in Chokhmah, wisdom, the archetypal father, or the ideal plan for creation. And so essentially this is getting at the design of selfhood that you are intended to be, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. At least it's what I've been talking about. Trying to talk about. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh. I hate these charger wires so bad. Okay. All right. Excuse me. Let me start here with you. And it says that the overall, and this is talking more specifically about the overall result. So the ultimate answer to your question, um, it does say that there is opportunity for you to be quite happy, um, despite being. I mean, it does sort of say that you will be happy, but there will be something that sort of doesn't quite feel complete about it, and that is going to lead you to want to um, be productive, you know. Uh, really, I mean, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now the Prince of Discs comes back up, the guy from the previous operation that I thought might be um, some other person. Um, but you know, it could be. I mean, it seems like he comes from a strange quarter that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be someone that you, oddly enough, find possibly attractive. I know that sounds really weird, um, but it could be. I mean, I do think, based on the previous reading, I just have this very strange feeling that this person is going to be interested in you, and you're not going to be sure of it at first. You're going to obviously assume that no is the proper answer. But I do think that, oddly enough, you might come to change your mind, which is a little interesting, you know. And I don't know. I mean, that it's kind of not absolute, but it does. He does come back, you know. Um, and it is in the in a very important, taking place in a very important part of who you are. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. Um, you know, and it does. Well, it does say that um, there is likeliness that uh, you will encounter a relationship from an unexpected quarter, and that it would be with a male person who is sort of similar to you, possibly even a coworker, um, that you will actually, or who will be pretty successful and attractive, most likely. It's likely that he will either be a Taurus or a Virgo. Now, I mean, granted, it could technically uh, be a female person, but I don't I, I don't quite get that. It is not likely that that is the case. Um, and I hope I'm not talking crazy here, but I mean, this is just what it's saying. It's really weird. Um, you know, the alternative idea is that it represents a fresh outlook and appreciation of yourself. But I think we've kind of gone through all that in the previous operations. I don't know. It's very, very strange. Excuse me. And I don't know. I mean, this is sort of something that only time can really tell at this point to say who this is and what impact they actually are going to have on your life. It could be a very unexpected impact, though, is what it's saying. An impact that you did not quite expect, you know, and it might be part of this missing link that you feel. This feeling like things aren't quite right in your love life, um, or in your sense of happiness. I don't know. It's very strange, and I don't want to. I don't want to pick at it because it could be dreadfully and preposterously wrong. Um, but I don't know. I mean, they've never been wrong before, and that's sort of all I can say about what they're telling me. Okay. So, oh, for goodness sake. Okay, so sorry, that was my dad. Uh, so what I want to do quickly before we end is because I don't want to leave you feeling weirded out by anything I just said. Um, I took out the Prince of Discs and I want to ask more specifically about him and what exactly is well, actually, there is the hang on. Okay, yeah. All right, I'm going to ask more specifically about him and his future connection to you. Um, what exactly are we getting at here? Is it a literal other person, or is it just an extension of yourself? We're just going to draw 3 cards to describe his future relationship to you. Huh. Well, we did get the 3 of Cups again. Huh. Interesting. Oh, it's still dreadfully ambiguous, but let me... Huh. Okay. I mean, it sort of says the exact same thing. That it's someone that you will have some kind of relationship with um, that is sort of, in some capacity, the basis of this situation, of your question. Um, we have the universe with it. So it's a big deal. It's a long-term relationship, and it happens sort of quickly, oddly enough. Um, the other end of it is that you, well, it's going to be such a new idea for you that it's kind of going to require a lot of courage to be able to deal with it. Um, and sort of it's a new step in a totally different direction, so it is going to throw you a bit for a loop, and I don't think you're not going to quite know what to do with it. Um, I don't know. This is very strange. It does have, which may or may not be interesting, the Queen of Discs on the bottom. So again, that points in the direction that it could be a female, but again, it is not likely. Um, it is probably a male with a more female-esque energy to him, um, who you may meet through further education, sort of by chance is what it says. I don't know. This is a really odd outcome, and I've never really had to deal with an outcome quite like that before. Uh, so I don't know. I don't know if there's something that you just haven't told me, and I don't know. I'm sorry that it has taken this really unexpected turn. Um, but anywho, this is now getting on quite a bit in length here. So, and that's about it. That's all I can pull from that. So, sorry, Mom, just got home. So So I do think that's kind of all I can get from it. It is sort of a very ambiguous and very strange turn of events, but it does make some sense given the rest of the reading. Um, sort of, yeah, it definitely makes sense given the fourth operation, the all the difficulties with your love life. I don't know. I don't know. We're just gonna leave it at that, and you can choose to talk to me about that or not. You know, I'm always here for you if you are dealing with questions about your sexuality or anything like that, and that is something that would remain between the two of us, obviously. Um, so be it. I mean, again, you don't have to talk about it at all. But it is in the water, so to speak. But anywho, I hope you found the rest of this interesting. It was very difficult, and I apologize if I was lost or confused. Jesus, sorry. Um, what was I saying? Um, I can't think now. If you have any questions, basically, any feedback would be really, really nice. And if you're totally unhappy with it, and if it made no sense, I'm happy to try something else for you, free of charge. Because I hate when that happens. Every now and then, I just totally botch it, and I hope that I didn't. Of course, some of this has to do with the future, and so it's difficult to say. But if you're totally unhappy with it, if you feel like it didn't really help or answer your question, I am more than willing to do like a Celtic cross or something for you to try to pinpoint more uh, this this question that you have, which is a very important question, I think. Um, but I think the answer that you're getting is that you need to look at the situation you're in and how it's going to unfold to understand your relationship with yourself in regards to your emotional faculties. And it does suggest that tapping into that Queen of Wands personality, or starting to think about her more and how she acts out in your life, could be very interesting and worthwhile. Okay? Um, so let me know what you think, all right? And it was good doing this for you. I hope you find it helpful. And take care. Thank you. Bye.